A prince who swears he's left the palace behind, an anchor known for slicing through spin, and a studio swallowed in black, 2 chairs, 2 glasses of water, 1 conversation with nowhere to hide. What was meant to be a quiet, candid sit-down on NBC Nightly News becomes something else entirely. An arm wrestle between entitlement and restraint, between defensiveness and discipline. The set was stripped bare, a matte black void, 2 low armchairs facing each other across a glass table, framed by a halo of soft light that devoured everything beyond its circle. No audience, no applause, just breath, cameras, and tension. Lester Holt stood to greet his guest, calm and composed, the kind of poise that keeps live television from unraveling. "Thank you for being here tonight," he said evenly. "We appreciate your time." Prince Harry lowered himself into the chair with the economy of someone trained by cameras, shoulders square, chin high, less a guest than a man preparing for a duel. "My schedule's tight," he said, clipped. "But important topics deserve space." Lester nodded, setting an easy rhythm. "You've built a new life in the U.S. since stepping back from royal duties. People are curious. What has that transition been like day to day?" "Transition is the wrong word." Harry's smile was thin, practiced. "I didn't adapt. I returned to my own rhythm." "There's a difference." The tone was corrective, not conversational. Lester absorbed it without blinking. "I see. Then let's talk balance. Public scrutiny doesn't vanish. How do you manage it?" "Balance," Harry echoed, rolling the word. "People use that when they mean show us more." "I'm not obliged to." The cameras inched closer. Even the water glasses trembled in the light. Lester softened his voice. "Your family, then. Viewers wonder about the ordinary things. Mornings, routines. How do you and your wife support each other under pressure?" A smirk. Cold. "Support? We're not a reality TV couple trading pep talks. People underestimate us, as if we're barely holding it together. It's insulting." "I didn't mean to imply fragility," Lester said, measured. "Many couples relate to the tension between public and private life." "People relate a lot," Harry said, crossing one ankle over his knee. "I'm not here to offer a seminar on marriage. My children aren't public property either. If you're fishing for the fairy tale line, fine. We're happy." The period at the end of that sentence sounded like a gavel. Lester turned to his next card. "A broader lens, then. Your departure from the institution still fascinates people. What does the monarchy represent to you now?" "Nothing." Harry leaned back. "A theatrical set piece from my past. I stepped off that stage." "Some might argue that stage gave you a platform," Lester countered. "That it still amplifies your voice." "If that comforts them, fine," Harry snapped. "But I'm here for what I say, not the name on a family tree." The air seemed to tighten. Lester drew a breath. "Your late mother, Princess Diana. Her death reshaped how the world views press and privacy. How has that informed what you do now?" A flicker crossed Harry's face, then steel. "Dragging my mother into every interview is disrespectful. If someone thinks that's a ratings hook, they should examine their motives." "My intent isn't to exploit," Lester said quietly. "It's to understand." "Did that loss shape your stance today?" "I'm sure everyone thinks they understand," Harry said, impatience surfacing. "But being hauled back to the same point every time is exhausting." The water rippled again. Lester set his cards aside. "Then a direct one. Some viewers hear your tone as arrogant." "Does that concern you?" Harry's eyes cooled. "Arrogant? Saying things plainly isn't arrogance. I'm not required to sand down the truth so it's easier to swallow." The black backdrop seemed to rise behind them like a wall. Lester, ever the professional, made one last pivot. "Let's talk about your projects and charities. What do you want people to take away tonight?" Harry shrugged. "We're already communicating those. If people care, they'll find them. I didn't come here to read brochure copy." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was final. Another door closed. In the control room, no one breathed. Lester's smile was still kind, but the edges of it had hardened. "I understand," he said evenly. "Still, the goal tonight was to let viewers hear you from you." Harry didn't blink. "Viewers hear what they want. That's part of your system. The camera caught the sparks. Two calm faces, neither giving ground. As the first segment ended, the only sounds were breathing and the low hum of the studio lights. It felt like the air before a storm. Because in the next block, the questions would sharpen, the answers would strip their polish, and the line between patience and provocation would vanish, leaving that black backdrop to witness whichever man cracked first. The red recording light blinked alive again. The studio felt heavier now, quiet, but not peaceful. Lester's voice, steady as a metronome, cut through it. "Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with Prince Harry." Harry shifted in his chair, posture locked, expression unreadable. His fingers drummed once on the armrest. Precise, restrained, restless. Lester glanced down at his notes, though he already knew every question by heart. He gave Harry a second to exhale. Instead, Harry exhaled impatience. "Let's talk about the life you've built here," Lester began smoothly. "You and Meghan have launched organizations, media projects, charitable initiatives. Some say you've found your voice in America. Others believe you've simply traded one stage for another. How do you respond to that?" Harry's eyes narrowed. His smile was thin. "Traded? That's lazy. I didn't trade anything. I evolved. That's what people do when they stop being chained to centuries-old nonsense." Lester took the hit and steadied his tone. "So would you say the criticism, that you remain in the public eye while asking for privacy, is unfair?" Harry's voice was soft, but the edges were razors. "Unfair? Lester, do you think freedom means disappearing? Privacy doesn't mean silence. It means choice. It's not my fault the press, or people like you, struggle with that concept." The condescension was impossible to miss. Still, Lester didn't flinch. "I understand your point, but when you give interviews, publish a memoir, appear in documentaries—" Harry cut him off, fast, sharp. "Let me stop you there. Those are my terms. You, of all people, should appreciate control over a narrative. That's what journalists crave, isn't it? Control." The temperature in the room dropped. The air grew tight between them. Lester leaned forward, voice quiet but firm. "My goal isn't control. It's understanding. And I think viewers want to understand how you reconcile rejecting the spotlight while continually stepping back into it." Harry's eyes flashed. "Because the spotlight doesn't belong to you, or the tabloids, or the monarchy. It belongs to whoever stands under it willingly. And I decide when it shines." The arrogance was unmistakable. Lester inhaled slowly, a faint sigh escaping through his nose. "Understood." A pause. Then, lightly, "Let's shift gears." He flipped a card. "Your late mother, Princess Diana, is often cited as a guiding presence in your life. Many people—" Harry stiffened. His voice turned to ice. "There it is." "I was waiting for that." Lester hesitated. "Waiting for what?" "The inevitable," Harry snapped. "Someone always brings her up, as if it's some trigger to make me perform for the cameras. My mother isn't a storyline, Lester. She was a human being. Maybe try remembering that." The words hung like smoke. Lester blinked once, steadying himself. "I assure you that's not my intent. Her legacy means a great deal. To many, including you. I thought it was fair to ask." "Fair?" Harry leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You think digging through trauma for ratings is fair? My mother died because of this circus. This very machine you're part of. So don't pretend this is about legacy." The accusation cracked through the air like a whip. For the first time, Lester's jaw tightened. His next words came slower, deliberate, edged. "Prince Harry, I've reported from war zones, disasters, and funerals. You won't find me exploiting pain. I ask because context matters. People are trying to understand what drives you." Harry scoffed, leaning back, folding his arms. "What drives me is none of their business." Silence stretched, long and taut. The hum of the studio lights filled it. Lester finally met his eyes, calm but unyielding. "You know," he said softly, "you remind me of every person I've ever interviewed who confuses criticism with persecution." The room didn't move, but the air crackled. Harry's brows shot up, his jaw locking tight. "Excuse me?" "I said," Lester replied, Voice calm but unyielding. You talk about accountability and truth. Yet every question seems to offend you. Every topic feels like an attack. Maybe the issue isn't the questions. The air shifted. Harry straightened, eyes blazing. Are you analyzing me now, Lester? Is that part of the act? The calm journalist who lectures his guest between sips of water? Because if that's where this is headed, I can save us both the time. Lester's smile barely moved. It wasn't friendly. It was the tired grace of a man who's weathered worse storms. This isn't an act, Your Highness. It's an interview. Then maybe learn how to conduct one without the sanctimony. A beat, one heartbeat, maybe two. Before Lester's reply came, lower, deliberate. I've interviewed presidents who showed more humility. Harry's lips parted, stunned for half a second before twisting into a sneer. And I've met journalists who showed more intelligence. The studio went dead silent. Behind the glass, producers exchanged alarmed glances. One whispered, "Do we cut?" But Lester didn't move. He simply adjusted his glasses, met Harry's eyes, and said evenly, "Let's keep going." His voice was soft, but his authority filled the room. "Prince Harry," he continued, "you've said you want to move beyond the royal family, yet every time you sit down for an interview, the topic comes back to them. Don't you see the contradiction?" Harry's stare darkened. "I talk about it because people won't stop asking. You included. Maybe look in the mirror before you lecture me about contradictions." Lester nodded once. "Maybe I just see patterns." He paused, letting the words hang. "And maybe tonight, we're seeing yours." Neither man spoke. The air was thick enough to slice. Harry leaned back, arms crossed, his voice dripping disdain. "You wanted honesty, Lester? Well, here it is. But don't expect it to come sugar-coated." Lester didn't flinch. His voice dropped to a quiet, cutting calm. "Honesty doesn't bother me," he said. "Entitlement does." The overhead light buzzed faintly. The camera operator's hand trembled on the focus ring. By the time the show cut to commercial, both men sat frozen, statues carved from pride and defiance. When the broadcast returned, nothing would be the same. The silence between them was radioactive. Even the control room crew barely dared to breathe. The black backdrop swallowed the edges of the set, leaving only two men framed in light, each a few inches from breaking. Lester glanced at his notes but didn't need them anymore. This wasn't about the cards. It was about control, respect, and who would blink first. He cleared his throat softly, voice steady again, the calm before the next collision. "Prince Harry," he began, "before the break, you spoke about freedom and control over your story. Let's stay there. Many admire your courage to speak out, but others, especially in the UK, believe you've turned that story into a brand. They say you've profited from rejecting the very institution that gave you a platform. How do you respond?" Harry's laugh came fast, sharp, humorless. "Profited? That's such a tabloid word, Lester. You people love to turn every ounce of human experience into commerce. Tell me, are you profiting from this interview? Is that why you're sitting there pretending this is journalism?" The words hung in the air like smoke from gunfire. Lester didn't blink. "I'm here to ask fair questions. You agreed to answer them." Harry leaned forward, eyes cold. "I agreed to a conversation, not an interrogation wrapped in polite diction." Lester exhaled slowly through his nose, patience thinning. "Then let's make it a conversation," he said evenly. "Why does every question feel like an attack to you, Harry?" Harry's smile was razor-sharp. "Because every so-called journalist thinks they're owed a piece of me. You dissect my marriage, my childhood, my mother's death, and then sit across from me and call it curiosity." The silence that followed was unbearable. A void between truth and pride, between what's said and what both men refused to admit. Harry's eyes flashed, his tone cutting. "I've lived with the media's hypocrisy my entire life. Forgive me for not bowing to it." Lester's voice cooled, the warmth fading. "No one's asking you to bow," he said evenly, "just to answer." Harry leaned forward, anger sharpening his words. "Answer to who? To you? To the viewers who treat my life like a sideshow? Maybe that's the real problem, Lester. You've built an empire on other people's pain." It was a direct hit. For the first time, Lester Holt's composure faltered. Just slightly, but enough to show the crack beneath the calm. When he spoke again, his tone carried steel. "You've accused everyone tonight. The press, the institution, even your own family. But there's one person you've never held accountable." Harry's brow furrowed, his voice rising. "Accountable for what? For wanting peace? For refusing to let the tabloids profit from my trauma? Spare me the lecture, Lester. You don't have the faintest idea what that's like." "I don't," Lester admitted, his tone steady, deliberate. "But when you spend years saying you want privacy, then sign deals to film documentaries about your private life, people are going to ask why. That's not persecution. That's reason." Harry laughed once, sharp and bitter. "You think logic applies when the media rewrites every word I say? You treat me like an experiment. Poke the prince, see how he reacts." Lester's jaw tightened. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "because you keep walking back into the lab." The words sliced the air. Harry froze, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "You think you're clever, don't you, Lester? Making the spoiled prince squirm for America's amusement?" Lester didn't blink. "No, I think the truth should stand taller than ego. And right now, ego seems to be doing most of the talking." The silence that followed felt suffocating. In Lester's earpiece, a producer whispered, "We can cut if you need." He ignored it. Harry's laughter came again, brittle and hollow. "You sound like my father. Always lecturing, never listening." "Maybe that's the problem," Lester said softly. "You stopped listening long ago." Harry straightened, fury returning. "You're walking a fine line, Holt." "And you've been crossing them all night," Lester replied, voice low but unwavering. A boom mic trembled overhead. The studio seemed to shrink around them. Then Lester's tone softened, almost kindly. "Let me ask you this," he said. "Do you think your mother would be proud of the way you've handled all of this? Of how you've spoken tonight?" Harry's chair scraped forward. "Don't bring her into this," he snapped. "You don't get to use her name to score points. You didn't know her. You didn't lose her the way I did. So don't you dare." Lester's eyes softened, but he didn't retreat. "I bring her up because she's part of your story, Harry. People still see her in you. But right now, all they're seeing is anger." "Maybe anger," Harry shot back, voice cracking with rage, "is what happens when you've been misunderstood your whole life. Or maybe," Lester countered quietly, "it's what happens when no one's ever told you no." That landed like a blow. Harry blinked, stunned, then gave a hollow laugh. "You think you can shame me into humility? You have no idea who I am, or what I've survived." "I think the world does," Lester said. "They're just trying to see the man behind the outrage." Silence fell again. Dense, vibrating, dangerous. The control room counted down to break, but the moment had already escaped the boundaries of broadcast. When the feed finally cut, Harry's knuckles were white against the armrests. Lester leaned back, voice calm as the screen faded to black. "Stay with us," he said. "We'll be right back." But everyone in the studio knew the truth. They weren't coming back the same. The interview had become something else entirely. A collision course between pride and principle. And when the cameras rolled again, only one of them would still be in control. The low hum of the cameras was the only sound for a long, uneasy moment before Lester Holt's voice returned. Calm, controlled, but carrying a new kind of weight. It was the voice that had narrated wars, disasters, and political scandals. But tonight wasn't about headlines. It was about breaking points. "Welcome back," he said evenly. "We're continuing our conversation with Prince Harry." Harry gave a tight nod, his jaw clenched. The easy charm that once captivated millions was gone. What remained was tension, polished, simmering, and defensive. Lester turned in his chair, setting his notes aside. A deliberate, almost theatrical gesture. "Prince Harry," he began, "we've discussed your decision to step away from the royal family, your advocacy work, and your views on fame. But what people still don't understand is this. If you truly wanted peace, why keep returning to the spotlight?" Harry's gaze sharpened. "Because peace doesn't mean silence, Lester. I thought I made that clear." "You did," Lester replied, calm as glass. "But when every new project becomes another memoir, Another documentary. Another tell-all. People start to wonder. Maybe what you want isn't peace, but attention. Harry's lips curved into a thin, bitter smile. Ah, there it is. The cheap shot. Couldn't resist, could you? The same tired narrative. Spoiled prince wants attention. How original. I'm not after originality, Lester said, unmoved. I'm after honesty. And what I'm hearing tonight sounds more like resentment than reflection. The tension in the studio could have shattered glass. Harry leaned forward, his tone icy. You think you're clever psychoanalyzing me on national television? You're no different from the tabloids, Lester. You just wear better suits. Lester's face stayed composed, though his eyes sharpened. Maybe the difference is that I don't sell pity. I ask questions. And right now, you seem unable to answer them without feeling attacked. Harry's jaw flexed. Because your questions are veiled insults. They're only insults, Lester shot back, if you've got something to hide. Even the camera operator flinched at that. The silence that followed felt dangerous. Harry's laugh broke it, hollow and sharp. You think you've cornered me, don't you? You and every smug journalist who's built a career tearing people like me apart. But here's the truth, Lester. I don't need your validation. I never did. Lester didn't blink. His reply was calm but devastating. Then why are you here, Harry? The question froze him. For a heartbeat, Harry's confidence cracked. Then he steadied himself. I'm here because I believe in speaking my truth. And yet, Lester said softly, every time you do, you make it harder for people to believe you. Harry's face flushed red. You're twisting my words. No, Lester said, leaning in slightly. I'm holding up a mirror. The world's watched you. The interviews, the memoir, the documentaries. You say you despise the monarchy, but everything you've built is rooted in it. You reject titles, but use them when it suits you. You demand privacy, but sell access to your story. So which is it, Harry? Which truth are we supposed to believe? Harry shot to his feet, his chair scraping against the floor. You're out of line. Lester stayed seated, voice calm but cutting. No. What's out of line is this ongoing performance of victimhood. You talk about being trapped, but you built the cage yourself. Harry's fists clenched. You think you can talk to me like that because you sit behind that desk pretending to be America's conscience? Lester finally stood, slow and deliberate, his height and presence commanding the space. No, I can talk to you like that because I've spent decades listening to people who earned their scars. You just inherited yours. The words hit like thunder. Harry froze, eyes wide, lips parting, breath shallow. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled between fury and disbelief. You don't know anything about me, about what it's like to lose everything. Lester shook his head. You didn't lose everything, Harry. You walked away from responsibility and called it courage. There's a difference. That was it. The breaking point. Harry's expression hardened. This interview is over. He tore off his mic, the device hitting the floor with a sharp, hollow clatter. Crew members froze. The only sound left was the echo of his footsteps as he stormed out, disappearing behind the dark curtain. The door slammed and silence fell. Deep, seismic, final. Lester exhaled slowly, turned toward the camera and straightened his jacket. His voice was calm but weary. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, this isn't the conversation we intended to have tonight. We hoped for insight, for reflection. Instead, what you witnessed was the collapse of one. I want to apologize to our viewers for the tone this took. Journalism isn't about confrontation, but sometimes confrontation finds us. He paused, eyes steady. Respect is a two-way street. And tonight, one side decided to walk away. The screen faded to black. What began as a calm, dignified interview became one of the most talked-about moments in modern television. A prince undone not by scandal, but by his own pride. The clash between Prince Harry and Lester Holt would dominate headlines for weeks, igniting debates about ego, entitlement, and accountability, and leaving viewers wondering who, in the end, had truly lost control.